Hi, and welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, co-hosted by Abby Fearing, the Badass Breastfeeder, and Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC.
Hey, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. I'm Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC, and I'm welcoming you to episode 11.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder.
We are going to talk about giving bottles today, which is kind of like, I don't know, it's one of those love-hate things, I think. Right?
Yeah, it seems to be, right. It seems to be one of those things where it's like, if you do give a bottle, oh my God, you're not a real breastfeeder. And, you know, and then like, oh my God, you're confusing your baby, your poor baby.
And, you know, sometimes, depending on the situation, sometimes it's necessary. And sometimes it's not necessary. And sometimes you just want to, which is okay too. You know, but people have it in their head that there is this whole bottle thing. You know, you give one bottle and that's going to be the end of any kind of breastfeeding success you might have.
Right.
And it's not. It's really not.
No, I mean, there's like women all the time who go to work and their baby eats from a bottle half the time and then eats from the breast half the time.
Right. The things that I get a little bit concerned about with giving bottles is it's not, and the other thing, before I get off on that tangent, I'll start on this tangent about the bottle. Like, have you ever seen them in the store? Like, every single bottle says best for the breastfeeding baby. Made specifically for the breastfeeding baby.
Yes, and that is capital B bullshit.
Yeah. It is. Completely. And I'll tell moms, like, unless you have somebody come to your house and take a mold of your boob and make a nipple out of it and put that on a bottle, it's not like your nipple. It's not. Yeah.
You know the leaky boob, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She did this great blog post. So I don't know. It was a couple years ago now. But she messaged me and she was like, can you draw a picture of your boob? And I was like, you're such a weirdo. What are you doing? And she was like, she made this whole blog post about how a bottle can never really be like a breast. And she had all these women draw their breast and how incredibly different breasts are from women to women. I mean, incredibly different.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and there's no way that a bottle could ever do that because, you know, whatever, breasts are so different.
But people really like, well, I got this bottle. It's the best for breastfeeding. And I don't want to tell them, like, you just wasted your money. It's not at all about the shape of the bottle. It's about how you feed that bottle to the baby. You know, you're not going to find a bottle that's just like breastfeeding. That is a great way to just get your money, I feel like, you know. And it's a great way to draw into those moms that are breastfeeding that are really worried about, oh my gosh, this bottle's going to completely destroy my breastfeeding relationship unless it looks just like my boob, which this one says it does.
Right.
I mean,
the box says it does, so therefore it does. Yeah. And no, and you know, there are actual, like, you know, the World Health Organization has like a policy about this, right? That you can't market things this way because they're detrimental to breastfeeding relationships. When you tell moms that things are, you know, that this bottle is just like breastfeeding or this is best for baby or whatever, you know, and in most of the world, you know, the code is followed.
Right.
It's not marketed that way, but that is not, it's not like that here at all. They don't give a crap about it here, and they'll market anything to you to get your money.
Oh, they will. It's crazy. And walk into any baby store. Do you really need all that stuff?
Right. I know. It's insane. I know.
Babies are $1 billion business.
I know. And it's funny because all you need is a boob.
Right. You need like nothing.
You need. I know. I wrote a blog post and I was actually going to do a chat about it this month, but, about baby registries and how insane baby registries are and how you look at that. I'm like, if you have a car, then you need a car seat. If you know, if you're going to go back to work, then yes, you need a pump. All that other stuff you don't need. I mean, they actually tell you the numbers of it too, like 1 crib, 2 sets of sheets, 3 comforters, you know, I swear to God, if you add it up, It's like $50,000.
Yeah.
And I remember my friends organizing a baby shower for me and me looking at like the baby, because, then you share the baby registry with your friends. I was having a panic attack. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get all this stuff?
It's ridiculous.
How in the world am I going to get all of it? I need to get all of this stuff.
And then where are you going to put it?
I fit it all into my house. And you know what happened? A year later, I threw 98% of it away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just need your boob. And I'm sorry, that was a tangent of baby registries. But.
No, that's okay, because I get on that. It's really, because moms will ask me, like, what kind of bottle do you recommend? What kind of bottle should I get? Or at my shower, I got a set of, 6 whatever kind of bottle. Mm-hmm. It really just doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It's really more about how you feed it to them. You want to, have you heard of the pace bottle feeding?
Yes.
And like that is really important.
Yeah, because your baby will drink a whole bottle.
They will. And
they'll just be like, I'm drinking. I'm sucking from this bottle because I think it's your boob. And the bottle is so easy to get milk out of. And they're just gulping it down.
The other thing that goes on with the bottle, too, which I don't know if moms realize or not, I'm thinking maybe not, because I hear this all the time. The baby will eat at the breast, they'll breastfeed, they'll be fussy afterwards, and then moms will give them a bottle thinking that, or dads or grandma or the babysitter or whoever, thinking that, maybe they just didn't get enough to eat. They'll give them the bottle and they'll suck down 2 ounces of formula or breast milk that you pumped or whatever. So now you're in this phase of thinking, okay, the baby's not getting what they need.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a bottle and they'll take it. And I'm like, so they say to me, but they take it. I said, of course they take it. Your baby is 2 weeks old. The suck reflex on a baby is involuntary for the first 3 months.
It's totally automatic.
For the first 3 months of their life. You put the bottle in there, they're going to suck, which means they're going to have to swallow, which means they're going to have to suck again.
Yeah, well, stick your finger in there and see what happens.
Right. And
you can put anything in there, they'll suck on it.
They do not know at a newborn stage, no, I'm full. They don't know what full feels like.
No,
they don't know how to not drink this bottle that's in their mouth. So if you're doing the paced feeds and you're taking the bottle out and you're, like that will help to slow things down and to keep them from overfeeding. But they will definitely take it, and that has zero representation at all on whether or not they still need to eat.
Right. And how many adults stop when they're full?
Oh my God.
I don't stop when I'm full.
No, me neither.
Ever.
Me neither.
I know because I'm an adult that I should stop, but I don't.
No. Especially if it's sitting in front of me or my kids' food.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll finish their food if they don't finish it.
Yeah. Oh, like, why should I put this in the garbage? I can just put it in my own body.
Right. But, and then it's for babies, they're not controlling the bottle. Breastfeeding is, they can control breastfeeding. They're taking what they want. They're taking breaks when they want the breaks. I have seen babies physically choking and trying to move their head away from this bottle because they cannot get away from it. And parents going, look, they're still hungry. It's like, oh my gosh, this kid is trying to get away from this feeding.
Right.
And, with breastfeeding, they have all that control to do that. Why don't we want them to have that? It would be like somebody force feeding us.
Right. Right.
So it really, bottles, we want to slow it down. It should take as long for a baby to bottle feed as it does for them to breastfeed. Absolutely as long. If it takes them 25 minutes to breastfeed, you should take them that long to take a bottle. And sometimes parents get proud. It took them 3 seconds. Great.
Oh, yeah. And then take it out of their mouth and put it away.
Yeah. And try to soothe them some other way. It doesn't necessarily mean that they still need to eat, if they're fussing after they finish eating. And if there's ever a concern about it, or you're worried, okay, I don't know if my baby's getting enough because they still seem fussy afterwards, that's when you need to bring a lactation consultant into it and really have somebody watch it feeding and determine whether or not, does your baby need more to eat, because they might not, or they're spitting up. I mean, not every baby spits up, but a lot of them, if you're overfeeding them like that, they're spitting up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not realizing that those two are connected. And I see that all the time too. Mom will be like, well, feeding him, but I'm not sure if he's getting enough. So then I'm giving him a little bit from the bottle. Like, is he spitting up? Oh yeah, all the time. Okay. Well, maybe it's too much. Or we weigh him and we find out he's gained 5 ounces in 2 days. And we're like, that might be a little on the high side. We can probably cut something out. But we don't, yes. Too much is not necessarily a good thing.
Right. We love plump little babies. Like, that's, you know, but they're going to be like, your baby's going to look however it looks, whatever it's eating. Mm-hmm. It needs to just eat the right amount of food. You don't want to plump them up. That's another one of those things. And do you hear like grandmas say like, you got to plump the baby up.
You don't have a fat baby.
You really do not have to.
No, you don't.
You just feed them the amount of food that they need. And so how do we know how much to feed a baby by a bottle? Because like their breast, you don't have to think about it. You just put your boob in their mouth and then, you know, kind of switch sides and then they're done.
Right.
Well, how do you know how much to give a baby a bottle?
Let me tell you, it's not as much as people think it is. So babies should not be getting, you know, of course it depends on the age, obviously. So if we're talking like newborn, you know, the first 2 or 3 weeks of their life, they should only really be getting an ounce and a half. I mean, that's plenty. They're little, you know, but frequent. We want frequent feeds, small frequent feeds for those little bellies. But as they grow, obviously they're getting a little bit more. Now, the cool thing with breastfeeding is that the milk changes depending on where your baby is in development. So if your baby needs more fat in their diet, if their baby needs more protein, if your baby needs more, you know, whatever, your milk is going to change to accommodate that. So it doesn't need to go up in volume, which is a huge thing that people don't realize. So now you've got your breastfeeding baby, and let's use like going back to work as an example. Now this baby's in daycare. They're, you know, 5 months old. They should not need more than 4 ounces, even at that age. Even at 8, 9, 10 months old, they should not need more than 4 ounces. That's usually the cap off, because it changes, it gives them whatever they need. They don't need more volume. But with formula, you have to give more volume because it does not change with the baby.
Right, okay.
So we run into this issue all the time with babies being overfed breast milk at daycares and with babysitters because people don't realize that, you know?
Well, that's the thing, is to educate yourself on how much your baby needs and then to spread the word. To spread the word to all the caregivers about how much should actually be fed. There's a friend of mine and a well-known lactation consultant, Nancy Moorbacher. She does work on my social media outlets sometimes. Well, all the time.
It's awesome.
But she shares a lot of her information, and she has a thing called, like a blog post called A Caregiver's Guide to the Breastfed Baby.
Fantastic.
And it's like a printout that you can just give to all the people, you know, that take care of your baby, because it happens so much that you pump all this milk. I mean, you're working your, you know, tail off to pump all this milk, and then, you know, after a week in daycare, all the milk is gone.
Right.
Like you're like, oh my God, I can't keep up with my baby. My baby's like, you know, I'm not making enough milk for my baby. Okay, well, that's not true. You're making enough. It's just being overfed in daycare. And so it's like a nice little guide of how to, you know.
That's awesome.
How to make it fast.
It is a huge issue that you see all the time. And I feel bad for these moms because they are working their tail off trying to keep up.
Yeah.
And
pumping is no joke. Pumping is no joke at all. I mean, like people that go back to work and that make that last, and people exclusively pump. I mean, that is crazy.
But it not only like if your baby's being overfed by the babysitter and they're going through all this milk at the babysitter, now not only is your baby, you're trying to keep up with pumping all this milk so that your baby can stay with this pattern, but you're also in a position now where your baby might not necessarily be that hungry when you get home to feed them. So now it's harder to keep your supply where we need it to be because they're doing, you know, way too much feeding during the day. And that's not what we want, you know? I mean, I've had moms, it's discouraging, that would, you know, go back to work and the daycare's giving, you know, 8, 9, 10 ounces within the first 4 hours that they're gone. And mom's trying to give more and step it up with more. And then all of a sudden the baby's, not feeding well at night anymore. They come home from work and they're going right to sleep because they're so full from the day. Now that milk is just not being stimulated at all.
Yeah.
And it's a huge issue. So one of the things to consider too is that, when babies are breastfeeding, they're getting all their sucking needs met. Babies have that desire to suck and it's very soothing and calming. When they're breastfeeding, those needs are being met. But if you're bottle feeding and you're bottle feeding for 5 minutes as compared to the 15 that you might be on the breast, you're going to still have that sucking need. You're not getting that met yet. Mm-hmm. So your baby does look like they still want to eat afterwards. It doesn't mean that you just continue to pour more bottle into them. Mm-hmm. We need to soothe them some other way. Or, like you said, teach the caregivers. My baby needs to be rocked afterwards. My baby mm-hmm. likes to be bounced. My baby likes to be whatever. Please try that before going to more food.
Yeah, right. You have to soothe them some other way. You can't just overfeed my baby. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's very discouraging. And then sometimes, the giving of the bottles is just,
sometimes we're duped into it, right? Yeah. I mean, I was duped into it with my first. He was born a few hours later. They were like, "You're not making any milk. He's hungry. You got to give him some formula." And I said no, and they were like, "Well, yeah." And I was like, "Okay." And so I gave him some formula, and then, so then he was I was feeding him. I was doing the whole thing, the breastfeeding for 20 minutes on each side, and then give him a bottle every 2 hours. And, it ruled our life for like mm-hmm. the first couple of months before I realized that that I'd been duped. I'd been duped by the formula market. Mm-hmm. And, I got over it, and a lot of women don't, because you like your milk really will dry up if you end up just feeding your baby only formula. Then your milk, it's not going to be stimulus, it's not going to be pulled out of your breast by your baby, and then it's going to go away.
Right.
So so the bottles are not, you don't need to feed your baby a bottle. Although I mean there are rare situations where women are ending up having to exclusively pump or whatever because something is very wrong, or
Yeah, it happens.
It does happen.
It happens. And, a lot of times people will say to me, even like when they're pregnant, well, I want my baby to have a bottle because, I want to breastfeed, but I want my baby to have a bottle too. Like mm-hmm. they're making this excuse for me. And it's like, that's fine. Like, it's fine. It's not like, okay, breastfeeding means you're never going to give a bottle in your life, because we all know that, things happen. Do you want to go out for dinner with your spouse and maybe have a date night? Leave a bottle. You're going back to work. You're going to be leaving bottles. Like, that's okay. It's not,
also fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay. But I don't like it when moms think. Well, I shouldn't say I don't like it because that sounds so blah. But when you're in the first 2 weeks of your baby's life, if you could not give a bottle, that's ideal. If you're in a position where the baby's feeding fine, you're not in pain, you're gaining, everything's working, because it's just one more thing for you to do. And people think, oh, I'll have somebody help me and they can give a bottle. Well, then you have to pump. So how is that helping?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to avoid pumping, geez. But
But everybody wants to give a bottle very, very quickly into the game.
And so what's that? So you're saying the first 2 weeks, is that a good, if somebody really wants to, so say you haven't been duped, you're not giving a bottle yet. When is it safe to be like, you know what? I want to take a break this feeding. Maybe just one feeding. People want to do that, and again, if that's what you want to do, it's fine. I personally think it sounds like extra work, but maybe you've got somewhere to go, or you want to go to, like you said, you want to go out.
Yeah.
Cool. Go out, leave a bottle. But what's the good time? Like after 2 weeks, you say? Is that
usually? Yeah, I always say after 2 weeks. Of course, you do have those exceptions to the rule. But like if everything's going fine, you're good. There's no issues. Give it 2 weeks. And I say 2 weeks because, first of all, we should be giving your baby time to learn how to breastfeed. And usually that 2-week window is a pretty good time frame. We also don't want you pumping, a lot before that because you're going to risk an oversupply too. So if you are feeding your baby every 2 hours, like like they say, and you're pumping on top of it, you're really telling your body, okay, let's make more milk for its old, second baby that we don't have. So we don't want to risk that either. But usually after 2 weeks, that's kind of when your supply is starting to settle in because the baby's been telling it for the last 2 weeks what it wants. Mm-hmm. So that's usually a safe place, after the first 2 weeks. And really, you should just be like laying on your couch recovering for longer than 2 weeks, but at least take that, where you should just be hanging out with your baby, breastfeeding, and not doing anything else.
Yeah.
You talking?
I'm sorry. My child has arrived.
Hello.
Apparently, Grandma said something about me. Grandma said what?
You.
Me what?
I
don't know. Okay. So yeah. So what did you? So did you say? So what's with pumping? I think you did just say this, but what's a good when people want to start pumping or they have to go back to work?
So if you have to go back,
somebody asked me this like recently, and I didn't know the answer. So if you have to go back to work, when is a good time to start pumping? Because not the first day.
No. Oh my gosh, no. So if you're going back to work, should we use 6 weeks because it's horrible? But a lot of women do go back at 6. 6 weeks. If you're going back to work at 6 weeks, I really think you should start at 3. I think you should give yourself half the time. I really do. And, you shouldn't be like, okay, it's Friday, I'm going back Monday, maybe I should pump this weekend.
No.
It takes your body time to adjust to a pump. You want to, slowly get your baby introduced to a bottle. You want to start, maybe depending on how much milk you want to put away first, if you want to put any away first. But it's nice if you can do it kind of casually, maybe once a day pump, and then maybe, depending on how much milk you want, you can add into from there. But if you're waiting until the very last minute, I mean, what if your pump doesn't work for you? What if you don't respond well to it? You need to get some hands-on help with it. Like, what if something else is going on there?
Yeah, you're already going to be nervous. You're already going to be like, freaking out about going back to work. You don't need to add another stress of then you'll be backtracking.
Yeah.
Trying to catch up.
So I think, if you give yourself half that time, that's a good place to be. So often, though, you see the reverse where moms are starting the minute they come home from the hospital. They'll be like, well, yes. I'm pumping already. I already started pumping. And they're feeding and pumping and, because they have it in their head, well, I'm going to want to back up. I want to have a backup, so I just started pumping right away. And it's just like, oh my gosh, how much more do we need to do here? This is way too much work. Way too much work. Just need to relax and enjoy your baby for a little bit, and there's going to be plenty of time to get caught up with the rest of that stuff. If you, and I've had moms do this, and if you're going to do this, what I'm about to say, make sure you're working with a lactation consultant or somebody with it. But I've definitely had moms where if they were just exhausted or sore or, just really, really struggling with something, then maybe I will tell them, why don't you take a break, give the baby a bottle of pumped milk, and we'll go back to it the next feed or whatever, But, and if that's it within that first 2 weeks. But that's okay if you're working with somebody, you're doing it the right way, you're not over pumping, you're not overfeeding, giving too much milk in the bottle, that kind of thing. When you first had your child, and I know when I first had Nathan and I was planning on him, and I was going through that whole, do I breastfeed, do I bottle feed? One of the reasons why I chose to breastfeed was because I was like, well, how much would I give him? How do I know? I'll just breastfeed. It'll be easier. And new parents now, if someone says to them, oh, give your baby a bottle, or even sometimes if the pediatrician says, supplement a little bit, if they don't specify how much,
no,
they'll give a lot. And not realize. They'll give, sometimes 2 ounces to this 3-day-old baby and go, well, I thought that's what came in the bottle. So, or that's how big the bottle is. So that's what I figured I should do. You don't know how much it goes in that. So really kind of to avoid that overfeeding and giving too much by bottle, work with somebody about it. Ask the questions.
Yeah, I think that's always the thing, is calling a lactation consultant. It always comes down to that if you're having issues.
It's worth it, you know, to really just have somebody answer those questions for you that does it all the time.
Yeah. When I first had Jack, and I was doing the whole frantic, you know, supplementing, and then I was frantic pumping too, because I have to increase my milk supply. And I think it was like within the first week when I started doing this.
Oh my God.
You know, I know. And I mean, like, the milk wasn't even white. Like, it was like, you know, it was still, you know, colostrum, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like freaking out that I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back to work. I got to fill my freezer. And, I couldn't even handle it. I eventually just quit my job. Yeah. I was like, I can't handle this. I cannot handle this.
At least you could admit it.
I know, yeah. And at least I could, you know, I mean, lots of people can't, you know, they can't afford to quit their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they can't. And they're stuck with it, you know?
But I was pumping and giving bottles, and it was like chaos, and I was giving a lot of formula, and then we switched to like supplementing with the breast milk, because then we were, you know, trying to get off the formula. And I eventually completely stopped pumping. I said, I am not doing this anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. I put it in the closet, and I never pumped again.
Good
and again,
I
didn't have to go to work, so that was the only reason I was able to do that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people think like, well, I stay home with my kids too, but you're supposed to pump to keep up your milk supply. And that is not true.
No, it's not.
You need a pump. The only reason you would need a pump is if you are working, or if you need to spend time away from your baby. Otherwise, you're there. Your boob is right there.
This was a surprise to me, that I really felt like the feeding was my job, you know, and I don't want to be like, oh yeah, it was my job, but I would look at my child, you know, and I remember really strongly feeling like this with Nathan, and then again with the twins too, that look at him and be like, I did that, you know, like he's growing and he's sitting up now and playing, and I did that, and nobody can take credit for that but me, and it's my job to feed him. Like that, I really felt strongly that it was, you know, my job as a mom to be able to breastfeed him and give him my milk. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes we feel like, you know, well, we have to give a bottle. If you want to, like, there's tons of options that we have, and that's why we have the pumps. But you also don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, these are what do you call them? Non-essential items. These are, there's a better word.
I don't know
What's
what it would
word?
be.
Whatever. These are options for you if you want them, but you don't have to have them. I think we think, oh, there's this company. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. No, sorry. He's my 3-year-old is nursing himself to sleep right now. Don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
Wake up.
Something you don't hear too often when you're breastfeeding.
Wake up. We see these things like, oh, you know, they make these things now. Oh, I have to have that. No, you don't have to have it. Like there's a lot of cool things on the market. There's lots of fun things that you can buy if you want. You don't need to have them.
Right. And half of what's in those baby stores pretty much fall under that umbrella.
I would say more than half. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, more than half. Absolutely. All right. So what's our takeaway message for bottles? You don't, they're fine. If you need to give one, they're there. If you need to give one, you don't have to give them, and don't overfeed with them. That's a big deal.
If you need to have a bottle, you want to have a bottle, just get the cheapest bottle. I don't know. That would be my advice, but get whatever bottle you want, and don't feel like you have to pump unless you have to pump because you're going back to work, then pump.
Right.
And everything's okay. You're still a breastfeeding mom.
You are. There's no, and there's so much, oh my gosh, do I give a bottle because then I feel bad? And do I not give a bottle? And, I want help, but I don't want to say that I want help. And all that's okay. It's all okay. There's no wrong here. But we definitely want you to, be comfortable with what you're doing.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So I forgot what we're talking about next week, but it's, I can't wait.
I don't, I don't have it in front of me, but it's going to be earth shattering. So
episode 12 will be earth shattering. So make sure you stay tuned. And if you have not listened before now, definitely, keep listening and send us a review. We love those.
Oh yes. Please post a review. Thanks.
Please post a review, and we will see you next week. Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.